Hey, this is Wilbur. Today we're going to do a bit of a different video. We're going to talk about the knockout punch, which in my definition is how to finish a game when your opponent has less than 2000 HP and you're looking to close the game out on a single round. And if you don't, these are probably going to cause trouble for you in the future. So that's why they're knockout punches. If you swing and you miss, it's probably going to be rough. So what these look like are things like the Elite Hacker card, high level Rhino drops, Lightning Storm, or Vulcan drop, or even like a nuke, so these red cards. And then finally, there's things like doing the Rhino Blender, Wasps, or a bunch of worms in a single round. So we'll go through some of these examples and talk about some of the nuances of each one of them. And I hope you will have some new tricks to try on your opponent instead of just throwing down that next melting point or that next Overlord to continue to build the same build you're already doing. Well, let's get into the first clip. In this case, I've played a pretty aggro game where I'm in a little bit of a danger of being outscaled. My opponent has some level 2 Vulcans now on the board that are double teched with Scorching Flame and Best Partner. And he is a giant specialist, so we're probably going to start seeing giants like almost every round because the amount of money that my opponent has is only going up and up, so giants become more affordable. He did just sell, he in the previous round had this level 5 Rhino, so now he's got an enormous amount of money to drop a bunch of giants. So I'm thinking I need to end the game sooner than later. My board state is some EMP Phoenixes with the aggro Tarantula push that I've been kind of running the entire game. And we'll see what this knockout punch looks like. So if we unpause, I send this large, this was a Rhino from a unit drop, so the original Rhino that my opponent had was here. So he sold it this round to buy some more giants. For me, I look at my opponent's board state, and I notice that this top right corner isn't very well defended against wasps, and my wasp swarm had just come off of cooldown. So what I do is actually unlock the wasp and buy 2 more packs and bring him up to this corner, and I'll be attacking the energy shield. So hopefully with this triple deployment of wasps up here, I can snipe this tower and end the game. So what I did was identify the weakness on my opponent's board. There's no like Mustangs or Typhoons or even like an Overlord or something over here, or a Wraith that would be able to either kill enough wasps to make them ineffective or outrightly destroy all the wasps from this deployment. It's a little risky here because it's a flank that I haven't established, so these are going to be teleporting in this round. My opponent has also done a little maneuver here to get around this Rhino. We see 2 more Vulcans coming down to protect his flank. So here we see the Wasp come down. So even with the EMP on these marksmen, it takes 2 shots for them to clear a Wasps. So they're pretty resilient against EMP marksmen. So now we'll see that tower go down. And if we look on the board, we would have lost. This side was collapsing very quickly from the Replicate Crawler and those 2 new Vulcans. And our right side was faring okay because we had all of our Phoenixes on that side. But this tower would have probably gone down before we got to our opponent's tower here. So with this remaining pile of units, like, we are able to clean up everything and get the win here. So I'll be moving on to another game where we see a different type of knockout punch. So this time we're going to look at a unit drop knockout punch. This is very similar to the one I had just shown, where we have 3 Rhinos, 3 Wasps, 3 Tarantulas, and Sabertooths available to us. So if we look at our board state, we have kind of a late game board where we have round 9, and I'm supply specialist, my opponent is area specialist, and both of us have picked up some worms from a unit drop. So my opponent has 3 worms, I have 4 worms, I also have a melting point to deal with this worm in the middle, And this Falcon's been down for quite a while in this game to help get rid of this crawler that was stopping my Stormcallers from being effective. So this round we see there's a smoke bomb available for me. My opponent does not have an actable item. My opponent's gone a carry sledge style. And I once again will look to the Wasps to end this game. However, I do like the triple Rhino drop as a finisher as well. In a recent video I did that against, I believe it was Carrot Cake. So maybe I'll show a quick little clip of that video. But actually, I'll just let you guys go check out that video if you're into it. So we'll get this video or replay started here. So here's the unit choices once again, and I go with the Wasp, and we'll see what Ich bin the better chooses here. He chooses the Sabers. So if we speed things up, we'll see these Wasps once again come down into this corner that I've identified is a weak point in my opponent's board. So we only see a Phoenix that'll be able to defend against this push. Just in case my opponent adds a missile up here, I added a crawler to defend against it, and once again have grabbed these energy shields because they're extremely effective against the Phoenix. My opponent's decided to oil the middle of the map, and I've also added a smoke to this side that my Wasp will get to later than this side. So if we slow down a little bit, you see most of my money went into worm upgrades this round, and I believe I also took the spread crawler. So here we see kind of this big fight in the middle happening. We did get a nice lock with our melting point. So we take down that big worm, and now our Wasps are onto that tower. They're gonna have to chew through this shield, but now it's down. And with that, we see most of the units are going to be cleaned up with hardly any losses on my side. So that's another way you can look to finish someone off. In this game, we have a bit of a different knockout punch that we'll be talking about. So here was a game where it was kind of like a standard v standard almost style, where I had more of an aggressive positioning towards the front. My opponent was positioned a little bit further back, closer to his towers, but we had a really similar kind of mirrored board where he had quite a few tank deployments, and instead I had quite a few saber-tooth deployments. I had just lost the previous round, so things weren't looking real good. But in this round, I'll start playing the video. I'm Giant Specialist, and I noticed that my opponent's middle of the board was kind of open to a worm attack. So in this round, I had enough money with efficient giant manufacturing to unlock. I don't know if I unlocked the sandworm this round, but I had unlocked several giants already. So I grabbed 3 sandworms this round and sent them right into the center of the map to disrupt everything in the middle of the board here. I also opted not to level my melters this game because it doesn't matter if your melter's level 3 or level 1, whoever gets the lock first is usually going to be the winner in the melter v melter war. So I do a little bit of moving around some money. I'd rapid resupply, and I think I sell a unit to be able to afford replicate and get a 3rd sandworm. So there goes the sale. 3rd sandworm will come down. There he is. So these sandworms are going to end up going right down the center here and disrupting a lot of what my opponent had planned in the middle of the board. So watch how this knockout punch plays out. And the reason why I grabbed replicate in this game was to one, so that the opponent's melters, if they did target my sandworms, they would lock onto the baby sandworms first, and then number 2, we're probably going to be popping up and down a lot going towards the middle here, because sandworms eat sledgehammers for breakfast, as we'll see here. So we get 1 burrow, and this guy burrows again, so we'll have another pop-up where we get to replicate. And then this sandworm doesn't quite get the burrow fast enough, it goes down to that first melting point, but we still have 2 sandworms up, and here you saw the replicated sandworm got targeted first, and then my melter got the lock onto his melter here. Down goes the tower, down goes the big melter, and with that we have enough with the 4 giants up to close out this game. So this was a bit of a different knockout punch. If you know, my opponent was less than 2k HP, you notice a weak point on the board where sandworms would be a pretty efficient unit. This is another option for you. Drop in like 3 sandworms in 1 round to push into a weak part of your opponent's board. So the middle of this board was weak to sandworm push, where his left and right flanks were quite strong. So attacking them would probably have resulted in me losing the game. But this was another interesting knockout punch finishing move, so to speak, where I had struggled to the previous round play the game my opponent wanted to play, which is the range wars with these 2 melting points. So all right, I hope you enjoyed this one. We'll show you another knockout punch in the next clip. In this clip, we have a kind of an interesting knockout punch. So the cards that are offered are Shield Drop, Improved Overlord Vulcan's Descent, and Nano Repair Kit. And looking at my opponent's board, if we hide the panel, there is a pretty wide open location for a Vulcan drop. So I actually take the Vulcan's Descent card this round, and so does my opponent. And they also do a pretty nice deployment with the Shield Drop protecting the Vulcan's Descent. So the reason why I picked this here is my fortresses have Fang production, and I would really like to delay my opponent's chaff to let those Fangs pile up and let me destroy all these medium sledges with the fortresses that I have range enhancement on. Unfortunately for my opponent, who tried to counter the Fangs this round, the Vulcan Descent is going to destroy these 2 new Mustang deployments as well. So not only does this Vulcan Descent capture these crawlers, but we're also going to stop what would have been the counter. And I also leveled these 2 towers this round, so expecting maybe a Vulcan's Descent in the center. So I wanted to give myself a little extra protection against a Vulcan. Vulcans do not take towers very fast. So I'll watch how this plays out. This Vulcan's doing so much work for me here, killing a crawler deployment, the 2 Fang deployments, and then most of these 2 Mustang deployments, and getting some damage onto those middle sledges. And then my opponent's board, with the lack of chaff and chaff clear, just gets completely overwhelmed by the number of fortresses I have, while his poor Vulcan is still trying to kill this 2nd tower. So here we have a pretty substantial knockout punch with just that simple Vulcan drop. Another common knockout punch that I think most people know about is combining Underground Threat with Replicate. So if I add a little bit more money here in our test ground and add Replicate to these crawlers, there are kind of 3 locations that I think you can get a lot of value with Underground Threat and Replicate. So let's say this is kind of like, you know, round 5, maybe 6, 7, and you're playing aggro and you got your opponent low, and he's got just a single crawler deployment in the left corner, the top right corner, in the middle. So you can take that Underground Threat and deploy it in any one of these locations right on top of this crawler pack. And what you'll see happen if we start the round here is those crawlers will emerge. They'll start to fight that pack that you just deployed them on, and they will win that fight. Not only that, those other crawler packs that are on the left and right will get drawn to that underground threat, and you also replicate those crawlers. So you're essentially just removing the entire back row of chaff from your opponent's board if they also don't match your replicate. So replicating crawlers is a really efficient way to end a game if your opponent has deployed a lot of forward chaff clear. So maybe their arc lights are above the tower line. So if I, put an imaginary box here, anything deployed in front of here is going to aggro forward. Anything deployed behind is going to attack the stuff in the back. So if your opponent is more forward with maybe his Mustangs or his arc lights, or other chaff clear, these crawlers will be left to fend for themselves against that underground threat, and you will replicate away. Some people, you have to be a little bit careful with this, because sometimes people will run drill on their crawler as well, and you might need to detect both of these to get this effect to work. If they detect drill and they don't detect replicate, those crawlers will actually win the crawler fight, and your replicate will fail. So sometimes you actually need to detect both drill and replicate to get this effect. So keep that in mind if you are going to try out this knockout punch in one of your future games. I would like to quickly mention too things like Vulcan Descent, Mothership, and those other, I think those are most of the cards, and Wasp Swarm, the cards that generate new units for your board. Rhino Drop as well. They will all get the tech that you have for that unit. So this doesn't just work for replicating crawlers. You can give your Wasp shield and use Wasp Swarm, and then kind of distract, if your opponent has a bunch of marksmen back here. Shielded Wasps will take a long time for those guys to kill, and all your medium units will probably be nice and safe to destroy whatever he has in front, and then finally get to those marksmen. So lots of ways to take advantage of those spawning unit cards with the associated techs. So I hope you enjoyed the look into how I think about ending games that I like to call the knockout punch, and I hope you approach the end game a little bit differently now. Instead of just following your build order, think about how you can close out a game towards those rounds like 6, 7, 8, 9 with just the cards that are given to you and the holes in your opponent's board that you've noticed. And with that, I think I'll mention that I did leave out some of the more obvious things, like I didn't have video of a nuke or a lightning storm in effect. Basically, the idea there is if you take it and your opponent doesn't, it can be a knockout punch, because that's a big swing in damage on your opponent's board. And the other ones I didn't talk about are things like Orbital Bombard, which is also a fantastic game ender. So with that, we'll see you guys on the next one. Bye for now.
This video is done, but you don't have to be. Click one of these Mechabellum videos to keep watching. We got more crawlers.